Hi everybody, it's Curt Frye, and in this movie I'd like to show you how to work with lists of data. So this will be a combination of data managing and data entry. I'm starting out with a couple of things that will let you enter values from an existing list. You can see that I have a list of categories of books in a bookstore. So I have my category label, and it is in bold. That will be important in a moment. And then beneath that, I have popular science and 4 other categories. If I want to add an existing value, then I can do it using autocomplete. So if I click in cell A11 and start typing, let's say, popular science, then you can see that Excel offers to complete the value for me. In this case, I'll click escape and get out of it. If I want to select a value from a list of the values above cell A11, then I can right-click A11, and then almost all the way down in the shortcut menu is Pick from Drop-Down List. So I'll click there, and you can see that a list of values appears, and the nice thing about it is that it is displayed in alphabetical order, and that is different from the values in A6 through A10. Another thing to note is that category doesn't appear, and that's because it is formatted differently. So let's say that I want to add science fiction a second time to the list, so I'll click it from the list, and it's been entered. Now I'll go up to A5 and click that cell and turn off bold, and then when I click A12, which is the new value below my list, and point to and click Pick from Drop-Down List, you can see that category actually appears. But science fiction only appears once because I get a list of unique values. So I'll go ahead and click fantasy. One other thing to note, if you're using Pick from Drop-Down List, is that you need to click the cell directly below the data that you want to work with. So in A14, I'll right-click and click Pick from Drop-Down List, and nothing appears, and that's because I have a blank cell in A13. You can also use a data validation list to restrict data entry into a cell. So let's say, for example, that I want to use the list that is currently displayed in this table here, and if I click a cell in the table and then click Table Design, I can see that the table name is Category List, and changing the name of your table to reflect the data it contains in Excel is extremely important. And also, I like to use tables for data management reasons that I will get to in a few moments. So I will click cell H5, and this will be my book category entry rule. And then I'll go to Data. And then in the Data Tools group, I need to click Data Validation. So this is the data validation button, and I'll click its main body, and I get the data validation dialog box. And I'll just move this a little bit to the side so I can see the data that I'm working with. So on the Settings tab, I'll click the Allow Controls down arrow and click List. And from here, I can define my source. So I will click the Collapse Dialog button, and then I'll select cells E6 through E10. Those are the values within my table column. And I will expand the dialog. And I will choose to ignore blanks, and I will have an in-cell dropdown. And we'll see how that works in a second. So I don't need to worry about anything else for now, so I'll click OK. And you can see that I have the list control in cell H5. So I'll click that. Now, one problem is that the values do not appear in alphabetical order, so I need to sort the original table. So I'll go back over to my source, and I'll click the down arrow for the category column, and I will sort A to Z. And you can see that I have my values appearing in the proper order. Now, when I go to cell H5 and click the down arrow, the values appear in the same order as they do in the data source. And I'll just click Popular Science from the list. Now, one great thing about using a table as your source for a data validation list is that you can add values to the table and they are included automatically in the list. So I will click cell E10, which is the last cell containing a value in the table, and press Tab. That adds a row to the table, and I will add romance as a category and press Enter. And I pressed Enter rather than Tab, so I did not add another row to the table. Now, when I go back to H5 and click the down arrow, you can see that romance appears without having to change the data validation rule. In the past, you would have had to update it to extend the range of cells. However, of course, romance should come above science fiction, so I will go back, click category, sort A to Z again. It's in the right place alphabetically. Click H5, click the down arrow, there's romance, and I will select it. So those are some tips on working with lists of data as far as data entry goes, and now I will talk about removing duplicates from existing data. So I will go to the Remove Duplicates worksheet, and here I have lists of data that are duplicated. So they're based, in this case, on 2 rows where I have the first name and the last name, and I want to remove duplicates where both the first name and the last name are repeated in the same row. So just visually scanning my data, I see that Curtis Frye appears twice. So in row 2 and row 7. So the goal will be to remove those duplicates from this data set. So I will select A2 through B9. And then again on the Data tab, in the Data Tools group, I will click the Remove Duplicates button. So I'll click there. And to delete duplicate values, select one or more columns that contain duplicates. So I have selected all of the columns, and I could also go down and do the first name and the last name. So for example, if I wanted to find all of the unique last names, then I could just clear the first name checkbox. But in this case, I want to make sure that first name and last name are both duplicated before we eliminate the record. So I'll click OK. 1 duplicate was found, and 7 unique values remain. Now, one thing to note is that the original data source, the selected cells in columns A and B, was altered. So if you don't want that to happen, you can use the unique function to paste the data elsewhere. So I'll press Control-Z to undo. So I still have Curtis Frye in row 7 as the duplicate. And then I'll click on cell D2, and here I will use the unique formula. So I'll type equal, unique, and the array that I'm going to work with is A2 through B9, and a comma. And you can see that I have 2 options. I can either return unique columns or I can return unique rows. True would be columns, rows would be false, so I will highlight false and press Tab, then right parentheses and Enter, and you can see that I have an array formula, or a dynamic array result, that spills over from D2 through E8, and I have all the unique rows from the original data source. Entering data using existing values, either through a list or a data validation rule, and removing duplicates are powerful data management techniques. I hope you like the tips that I provided in this movie, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to my channel.